Chapter 1. Boston in Flames. Boston's harbor glimmered with the last light of dusk, the crates of tea already swallowed by the churning waters below. Elijah Crawford pressed his back against the rough-hewn boards of a wharf, heart hammering like a drum. He had come here expecting whispers of rebellion, but nothing prepared him for the sight of patriots, disguised as Mohawks, climbing aboard the ships with a ferocity that made the very air tremble. The acrid smell of smoke and salt water mingled in his nostrils. He ducked as a British sentry's lantern swung dangerously close, illuminating the dark alleyways behind him. Every nerve screamed, "Run!" but his feet stayed rooted. Somewhere in the shadows, a figure slipped him a folded note, sealed in wax. "Meet me at the Green Dragon tonight. Come alone." Elijah had no idea that this night would mark the beginning of a journey that would lead him into the darkest corridors of human ambition, the hidden tunnels beneath New York, and a secret war that textbooks would never tell. As he folded the note into his coat, he felt the thrill of purpose and the shadow of fear intertwining. The colonies were stirring, and he, an ordinary printer's apprentice, was about to step into a world where liberty was bought with deception, courage, and blood. By nightfall, he slipped into the crowded tavern, the Green Dragon, its interior alive with whispered conversations and the clatter of mugs. Faces around him were both familiar and strange. Some he recognized from town meetings, others were strangers whose eyes held secrets he was not yet ready to fathom. He slid into a shadowed corner, waiting. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, a woman approached, her gait confident and eyes sharp. "Elijah Crawford?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Yes." "I am Rebecca Harrow," she said, leaning close. "I have a message for the Sons of Liberty." "You are to be their courier." Elijah's pulse quickened. Courier? He had seen the word in print, but the reality of it, the danger, sank in immediately. The British would hang spies without a second thought, and yet, beneath his fear, there was a spark, a longing to be more than a printer's apprentice, to have a hand in the making of history. Rebecca pressed a small piece of folded paper into his hand. "Memorize this. Destroy it afterward. If anyone asks, you know nothing." He unfolded it cautiously. Ciphers, numbers, and symbols danced across the page. He swallowed hard. This was no ordinary rebellion. This was a war of shadows. The night passed in a blur of preparation and whispered instructions. By dawn, Elijah slipped out of the tavern, the note memorized, his path set. He was no longer merely a witness to history. He was about to become one of its hidden authors. Chapter 2. A Dangerous Choice. The morning fog clung to the streets of Boston like a shroud, muting the sounds of carriages and hurried footsteps. Elijah Crawford moved carefully, the memorized cipher folded in his pocket, the weight of its secrecy pressing against his chest. Every glance over his shoulder reminded him that the British soldiers were not just in uniform, they were everywhere, eyes sharp, tongues ready to betray. He arrived at a narrow alley behind the old State House, where a small group of men huddled, faces obscured by hats and scarves. Samuel Adams, older and stern, gestured for him to join. "Crawford," he said, his voice low and commanding, "you've been chosen because you can move unnoticed. You will carry messages between Boston and New York. Lives depend on it." Elijah's hands trembled. The gravity of what he was about to undertake pressed down on him like a boulder. Yet, beneath the fear, there was a surge of purpose. Finally, he nodded. "I understand," he said. "Good," Adams replied. "Remember this. The British have spies among us. Trust no one completely. Not even the ones who claim to be patriots." Elijah spent the day learning routes and memorizing the code. Every tavern, alley, and back street became a potential lifeline or a trap. Rebecca Harrow returned in the evening, her presence a silent reassurance. "Your first run will be to the outskirts of New York," she said. "You will carry this message to our contact in the city, memorize it, and burn the paper." That night, as he navigated through foggy streets, Elijah felt every shadow as a potential threat. Soldiers passed closely, horses' hooves pounding the cobblestones. He ducked behind barrels and carts, heart hammering, mind racing. This was no longer an apprenticeship. This was war. Chapter 3. Across the Lines. Elijah crossed the Massachusetts border at dawn, each step carrying him further from the familiar streets of Boston and deeper into enemy territory. The countryside was quiet, deceptively calm, hiding patrols and informants in plain sight. He relied on instincts he did not yet know he possessed, reading every movement of birds, every sound of wheels, every shift in the wind. When he reached a small tavern in New York, he recognized the signal, a candle placed in a second-floor window, exactly as instructed. Inside, the contact, a wiry man named Thomas Green, took the message without a word. "You've done well," Green said. "Return immediately. They'll be looking for someone like you." Elijah's journey back was fraught with tension. A British patrol turned a corner unexpectedly. He froze, pressed himself against a wall, and held his breath. The soldiers passed, barely glancing at the shadows. Elijah exhaled slowly, adrenaline surging. Each successful run deepened his commitment, but the risks gnawed at his mind. Chapter 4. The Web of Secrets. Back in Boston, Elijah learned that the network of patriots was far more intricate than he had imagined. Hidden tunnels beneath buildings, secret meeting rooms in attics, and coded newspapers allowed information to flow while the British slept, unaware of the invisible war happening under their noses. Rebecca guided him through the nuances of spycraft, dead drops, invisible ink, and seemingly innocuous signals. "History remembers battles," she said, "but it often forgets the shadows that made victory possible." Elijah's first taste of the deadly politics within the patriot ranks came soon after. Loyalties were tested, and betrayal was never far from his mind. He realized that survival required not just courage, but cunning and discretion. Chapter 5. Betrayal at Midnight. One night, Elijah returned from a mission to find the safe house emptied, papers gone, and a note pinned to the door. "We know who you are." Panic surged through him. Every decision, every step, every interaction now carried the possibility of death. He fled through narrow alleyways, pursued by shadows, until he finally reached the river, where a small boat awaited. The currents carried him to safety, but the betrayal weighed heavily on his heart. He understood then that war was not only fought on battlefields, but in whispers, in secrets, and in choices made in darkness. Elijah Crawford had crossed the threshold from boyhood into a world of perilous responsibility. The revolution was no longer an abstract cause. It was a test of his courage, his intellect, and his ability to navigate the deadly game of spies. Chapter 6. Shadows and Deception. The streets of New York were a maze of suspicion and whispers. Elijah Crawford moved cautiously, now a seasoned courier, yet each step reminded him that one mistake could be fatal. The British had tightened their grip, and rumors of double agents circulated among the Patriot network. Every friendly face could be a foe. Rebecca Harrow met him in the cellar of an abandoned warehouse. "We've learned that someone within our ranks is feeding information to the British," she whispered. "You must be careful. Even a familiar face might turn against you." Elijah felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. They reviewed coded letters and invisible ink techniques. He marveled at the ingenuity. Messages written with lemon juice, disappearing when heated, only readable under specific light. "Every detail counts," Rebecca said. "The smallest error could cost lives." Chapter 7. The Precursor Ring. Elijah became part of what would later be recognized as the precursor to the Culper Ring. Operatives moved unseen through the city, leaving messages hidden in hollowed-out books, under loose bricks, and inside the seams of clothing. Elijah's assignments grew riskier. He infiltrated social gatherings hosted by loyalists, pretending to be a merchant. Every conversation was an act of subterfuge. One misstep, one careless word could expose the network. Yet, with each mission, his confidence grew, and he discovered a talent for reading people, for sensing when someone harbored secrets. Chapter 8. A Forbidden Bond. Amid the danger, a complicated affection grew between Elijah and Rebecca. Their relationship was a tangled web of trust, secrecy, and shared peril. They communicated in coded notes, hidden in plain sight among books and newspapers. Their partnership was both a strength and a vulnerability. As they navigated espionage together, Elijah realized that personal attachments could be as dangerous as enemy patrols. Yet, the bond gave him courage, a reason to persevere when fear threatened to paralyze him. Chapter 9. Infiltration of the Enemy. Elijah's assignments now took him deeper into British territory. He gained entry into enemy headquarters, posing as a clerk delivering documents. Inside, he observed strategies, troop movements, and confidential plans. Each visit was a delicate dance. Guards passed just meters away, and Elijah memorized every detail with precision. He left without a trace, carrying intelligence that could alter the outcome of battles. The thrill of espionage was intoxicating, yet the risk never diminished. Chapter 10. Close Calls and Narrow Escapes. Suspicion within the city heightened. Counterintelligence was relentless, and Elijah narrowly escaped capture multiple times. A patrol spotted him near a dead drop. He hid beneath crates, heart pounding, as the soldiers questioned his absence from the streets. In another instance, a coded message was nearly intercepted by a loyalist. Elijah realized that the very tools of their trade, codes, invisible ink, secret signals, were constantly under threat. The invisible war demanded vigilance at all times, and failure meant death, not only for him, but for countless others depending on the information he carried. Chapter 11. The Battle of Saratoga. Autumn painted the countryside in hues of gold and crimson as Elijah made his way toward the northern front. The intelligence he carried would prove crucial in the upcoming Battle of Saratoga. Every detail of troop positions, British supply lines, and hidden fortifications rested in his memory alone. The night before the battle, he huddled in a small barn with Rebecca, going over the plan. "If this information reaches General Gates, it could turn the tide," she whispered. "But if you're caught—" Her words trailed off, but Elijah understood. Capture meant execution. At dawn, the Patriots struck. The information Elijah had risked his life for allowed them to anticipate British movements, flank key positions, and secure a decisive victory. For the first time, he felt the tangible impact of his espionage. Lives had been saved. History had shifted. Chapter 12. The Price of Trust. After Saratoga, Elijah returned to New York, weary and cautious. The network had grown more intricate, and betrayal lingered like a shadow. He received coded warnings that a mole might exist within the upper ranks of the Patriot leadership. Elijah learned to trust selectively, observing colleagues for subtle signs, hesitation, unusual questions, or too perfect recollection of events. Every handshake, every letter, every glance could conceal danger. In this world, loyalty was rare, and paranoia became a necessary companion. Chapter 13. Secrets Beneath the City. New York's bustling streets hid a network of tunnels used to transmit intelligence unseen. Elijah navigated these labyrinths with practiced ease, delivering messages hidden in hollowed bricks, barrels, and lanterns. Rebecca accompanied him once, and the two moved like shadows beneath the city. They encountered secret chambers, abandoned warehouses, and coded maps of British fortifications. Elijah realized that the war was not only fought on battlefields, but in the hidden veins of the city, where a single mistake could cost countless lives. Chapter 14. The Double Agent Word. Arrived of a British spy embedded within the Patriot network. Elijah and Rebecca devised a trap, planting false intelligence and observing reactions. The spy, a man named Edward Carow, fell into their plan, revealing secret passages, coded messages, and loyalist contacts. Exposing Carow earned Elijah both admiration and caution. He understood that every victory in espionage was temporary, that the shadow war was perpetual, and that human greed and ambition could undo even the most careful plans. Chapter 15. The Siege of Yorktown. By 1781, the war had reached a critical juncture. Elijah's intelligence efforts were instrumental in coordinating Continental and French forces against the British at Yorktown. He memorized troop movements, supply depots, and communication lines, carrying messages across enemy territory under the cover of night. As cannons thundered and the battlefield roared, Elijah and Rebecca watched from the shadows, unseen but pivotal. Their efforts ensured that the Continental Army could anticipate British strategy, ultimately leading to Cornwallis's surrender and a decisive step toward American independence. Chapter 16. Shadows of Victory. With the war winding down, Elijah reflected on the sacrifices and lives lost in silence. He had seen friends fall, had evaded capture by inches, and had uncovered truths that would never appear in official histories. Liberty had been won, but at an unseen cost. He returned to Boston quietly, leaving coded notes and secret documents in safe places. The network remained active, ready to protect the fledgling nation from threats both internal and external. Though the battles had ended, the War of Shadows continued in quiet vigilance. Chapter 17. The Loyalist Conspiracy. Boston's streets seemed calm, but Elijah knew better. Whispers reached him of a loyalist conspiracy targeting high-ranking Continental officers. Hidden in letters, tavern conversations, and subtle signals, the plot was sophisticated and deadly. Elijah and Rebecca began piecing together the network. Hidden sympathizers, corrupt officials, and merchants loyal to the crown formed a web that threatened to undo the revolution's fragile gains. Every day spent uncovering the plot was a day closer to potential disaster. Chapter 18. The Message in Code. Elijah received a message written entirely in a complex cipher, a code so intricate that even veteran spies struggled. He memorized the sequences, the invisible ink patterns, and the subtle markers. Delivering it across enemy lines required nerve, precision, and timing. Along the way, he encountered a British patrol. Hiding beneath the shadows of a bridge, he watched them pass, pulse racing. The mission was a success. The coded message reached George Washington's officers, allowing them to anticipate the Loyalist moves. Chapter 19. Shadows in the Night. New York City became a theater of hidden battles. Elijah navigated its alleys, rooftops, and cellars, leaving intelligence that would shape military strategy. Rebecca guided him through secret passageways, ensuring their movements remained undetected. Each night brought new dangers, patrols, informants, and the constant fear of betrayal. Yet Elijah thrived in the tension, moving like a shadow, unseen but indispensable to the cause. Chapter 20. The Final British Offensive. British forces attempted a final offensive to reclaim control in the north. Elijah's intelligence operations were crucial in intercepting their plans. He relayed troop positions, supply shortages, and weak points in fortifications to Continental generals. The Patriots, armed with this knowledge, countered effectively. The offensive failed, solidifying American control in key territories. Elijah felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The stakes had never been higher, and the cost had been immense. Chapter 21. A Narrow Escape. During a routine message delivery, Elijah's carriage was ambushed by Loyalist soldiers. A chase through narrow streets ensued, the horses' hooves echoing like thunder. Elijah leaped from the carriage, rolling through mud and debris, narrowly avoiding capture. Rebecca met him at a pre-arranged safe house. Their relief was tempered by the realization that every mission carried mortal risk, and the web of spies and traitors was far from fully unraveled. Chapter 22. Secrets of the War. Elijah began documenting his experiences, noting the hidden operations, secret alliances, and unsung heroes of the revolution. He understood that most of history would never record these acts, yet their impact was undeniable. The war had not just been fought with muskets and cannons, but with messages, disguises, and courage in the shadows. Every courier, spy, and codebreaker had played a vital role in shaping the emerging nation. Chapter 23. The Endgame. As Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, Elijah felt a mix of triumph and sorrow. The war was ending, but many threads remained unresolved. Some spies were still active, enemies in hiding, and unfinished plots lingered in the shadows. He delivered final messages, ensured safe passage for remaining operatives, and began to disentangle himself from the dangerous networks that had defined his life for years. Chapter 24. Farewell to the Shadows. Elijah and Rebecca parted ways quietly. Their bond remained strong but unspoken. The danger they had shared could never be fully acknowledged in public life. Elijah returned to Boston, seeking anonymity and peace after years of clandestine service. He observed the city's streets, now filled with citizens free from occupation, unaware of the invisible war that had made their freedom possible. Chapter 25. The unsung hero, Elijah Crawford, faded into obscurity. Newspapers chronicled battles and political victories, but his contributions, like those of countless others in the shadows, remained hidden. He lived quietly, carrying the knowledge that liberty had been won not only through combat, but through secrecy, sacrifice, and courage in the unseen corners of the world. Yet, even in obscurity, he found solace in the legacy of the revolution. The nation was free, and history, though often incomplete, would forever bear the mark of those who fought in silence.